Hi everyone, this is Lokesh Baba from the Soul Freedom Show and Radical Purpose Coaching. And my website is radicalpurposecoaching.com. And we have a very special guest today, Mr. Peter Aziz. How are you doing, Peter?
Very good, thank you. Good to be here.
Yes, great. Yeah, Peter is a teacher of the shamanic traditions, the African and different traditions. He's going to share some of that information, but he's also an expert in dragons, fairies, and I mean, there's so many topics you're an expert at. So I would like you to introduce yourself so I don't get mixed up in your different
Okay.
areas. Yeah.
Obviously, I'm a shaman. I was born into a shamanic bloodline from my grandmother's side from Hungary, but I've trained in purple Indian shamanism, Vodou, South American shamanism, ayahuasca, Kahuna, and spent about 25 years training in Javanese magic as well. So I've got quite a different mixture of things I'm trained in.
Great. And do you want to talk a little bit about your background, where you grew up, and now what you're doing, where you are?
Okay. Well, I was born in London. Actually, we didn't live there very long. I was brought up in Hertfordshire, so I was educated. I did physics at university. I was very much a scientist in those days. Then I got into my healing, and I trained in purple Indian shamanism. I did also homeopathy and acupuncture, various other forms of natural healing, and I started to diversify myself and to go more into shamanism. So I spread out then. I trained with Kahunas in Hawaii. I've trained in the Amazon jungle with ayahuasca heroes. I did voodoo. I've been to India a lot as well with the path for Kali, the Agora path. And biggest part of my work has actually been the Javanese magic I've done the last 25 years. I've trained to a very high level in that. And basically I work as a healer, and I bring tools from all these different traditions together to actually get a bigger picture of healing. So there's always some tool from a different tradition that something else might not be healing. So I've always been searching for new methods. If there's something that couldn't be healed, I always found a way. So I have a very wide variety of tools I use in healing, and of course this has brought me into other areas of magic too. So it's a very interesting path. I'm always seeking to heal the impossible. If somebody's got a problem, I'm always trying to find a solution.
Wow, yeah, that's something I'm blown away by your study, by your teachings, is that how do you integrate so many different traditions and religions and spiritual things? Like, how does your brain even manage to do that? Like, do you take any special drugs?
No, well, obviously I did a lot of ayahuasca, but so that's
Yeah.
kind of helped expand the consciousness in some ways, which is very interesting how that worked. But basically, I started as a scientist, as I said. So my mind has always tried to seek more solutions, more keys, bigger piece of the jigsaw puzzle. So yeah, my mind has kept it well together. But I've been very practically motivated. So rather than stick in one philosophy, I'm always looking for an answer to a physical problem. In healing, whether it's a physical problem, an emotional problem, whatever it needs to be healed, I'm trying to find a solution. So I'm beginning to with all the keys I can to actually heal things. And I find each tradition has a piece of the jigsaw. So not so much actually getting caught into one tradition. I'm coming forth as a scientist, actually, to actually bring things together and to see what works.
Yeah, so the biggest obstacle I find in all these different teachings, especially the older tradition, shamanism and stuff like that, is like the difference between visible and invisible.
Mm.
Let's take, like dragons, for example. Like, I'm still studying about it, but obviously we cannot see dragons with our eyes, or fairies or anything like that. Or even like people who channel, Jesus Christ and all these things. Like, how in a normal, like a logical sense, how do we know that what we are experiencing is true, or we're just making it up in our minds?
Well, the truth is, you never really know if it's true. The important thing is, does it work? I said that's why it's important that I've come from a scientific point of view, trying to find a solution to a problem. Basically, it's like when you work with dream work, for instance. You find when you work with your dreams and you find good answers there which can actually help great psychological change, you don't think that dreams are actually true. But the information coming in could be symbolic, could be very valuable. And I find the same thing when you're doing things like past life regression, anything. If it works, I use it. And there can be different explanations as to why it works, but the important thing is it works. So it's not so important, is it true, but does it work?
Mm. So when we're talking about, let's say, if it works or not. So let's say I'm depressed and I take a medicine, right, like a pill or something. now it's working for me in the moment, but how do I, like, I have to keep taking it. I mean, there's many aspects to it. Let's take addiction as an example, right?
Oh, that's a good example, yes. Because
Yeah.
that's the main difference between natural medicine and taking pills like this, because they work for a certain time, have side effects, and create longer problems, in the long run. Whereas in natural medicine, we're trying to find a long-term solution where you get better all the time, not getting gradually worse. A lot of people find they keep taking more and more drugs this way, and they get worse and worse, and take more and more pills, and there's always another problem. And generally, their health is going down. What happens in natural medicine, you're trying to work through all these past problems and cleanse yourself so your health gets gradually increasing. It's not just overcoming one problem, it's a complete overhaul, trying to improve your life, your health, your mind in every way. So it's a continued upward path. So the long-term goals are important here, whereas normal medicine will give you a short-term solution.
So if that's the case, why are these healing modalities less popular than the normal, pharmaceuticals and stuff? Is it just because of the knowledge that has not been transmitted through education system, or is it also because people can't see it? Like they say, if you see it, you believe it, but people don't see these things, so they can't believe it, right?
Well, the thing is, when people take a pill from the doctor, they have no idea how it works either. So that's not really the reason. It's more just the kind of brainwashing we're born with. We all brought up with a certain expectation in life that people learn this is what you do when you're ill. You go to the doctor. They don't learn about natural medicine. They don't teach about it at school. It is actually a very alternative thing. So most people don't hear about it. Then there's all the propaganda, of course. The drug companies try and tell you that nothing else works and this is what you've got to do because it's very commercial. So, of course, people brought up thinking that's what's real. And many people won't even try natural medicine. They're so conditioned to thinking that orthodox medicine is the only way. So really, to most people, natural medicine doesn't get a chance.
Right. So let's talk about, let's say, ayahuasca, for example. Even that, or DMT or mushroom, anything like that, it's not a quick fix. It's not that we just take it.
No.
Yeah.
See, when we do things like ayahuasca, which is obviously is mind alterating, we're not taking it as a drug so much. It's used in a ritual, in a ceremony where we have sacred songs and so on, the whole spiritual context, which helps you get into yourself, understand yourself, your own thoughts, your own suppressed feelings. So all your suppressions come up, everything you've denied, everything needs to come up. Basically, emotion that you stored away for a long time. This is obviously creating problems in society, needs to come out, and quite often this is very deep emotional cleansing, bringing out all these old thoughts and things which psychology doesn't have to really deal with. Like, as you mentioned, taking a pill for depression, psychology often give you a pill to deal with emotion. Let's not really deal with it. It's pushed inside and it's creating more problems for later. A lot of people realize sometimes they want to get it all out. They have too much that's being pushed inside. They want to stop suppressing it. It needs to come out. This is where the things like ayahuasca are so good. You purge the old emotions. You can have your fear and your anger and everything coming out, and it's released.
Again, that one is also do you think it has also been misused? Because now people, if you do it multiple times, that doesn't mean that the problem is going to go away faster, right?
No, it's not just the medicine itself. It's a tool. It has to be taken with the right context, the understanding how you heal. It's there to actually make spiritual change, emotional change, to actually heal inner conflicts, bring out the suppressed emotions. People take it for many different reasons and don't always use it in the right way. If they take it as a drug, then it's just a drug. If you have a spiritual journey, then you get somewhere.
So do you mean to say it has to be combined with something like a therapy session?
Well, that's what's part of the ceremony is. When you do an ayahuasca ceremony under the shaman, you have the sacred songs, there's a whole process of healing going on, and you're prepared. So whatever is in that ceremony, you actually welcome your feelings, you remember to actually feel it, welcome it, let it out, and let it change. You let the medicine work on it. You learn to actually not deal with, project it onto people. You learn to not take your images as too real, but just let things out because it's healing. If you take the right mindset with it, then it has a great effect. The problem is a lot of people don't know how to release those emotions. Stuff comes out, they want to run away again. Or they have a vision, they think it's real, they try and take some form of guidance, and that often misleads them. It's not what it's about. It's used to purge yourself of these old emotions, all this stuff that's holding you back, that's making you sick.
So even if, let's say I have some trauma or something like that from childhood, let's say I go through some of these psychedelic journeys and I'm feeling perfectly fine now. So what are the chances, because we go through life situations again and again, so there's a chance I might still get it back, right?
Yes, but that's again, that's why it's important to actually take it in terms of the whole concept of the songs, the prayers, everything. I'll give you an example with my first journey. The first medicine I took was actually peyote. In the ceremony, I'd taken the medicine. Yeah, I was feeling a little bit lightheaded and high, nothing much happening. But those people going to the prayers, there's a friend there who knew what I'd been through. Basically, it was about a year and a half after my wife had died, and I left 2 children of my own. And I put a lot of energy trying to help them get through it and help me deal with their own emotions. And I was cracking up by that time. And once my friend put out a prayer for me, that's when it suddenly hit me. It's like the medicine opened me up, making me sensitive, and suddenly he put a prayer for me, and all my emotions came out. I spent about an hour crying my eyes out, basically. Then also had a vision of actually suddenly going to the other side, going through death and seeing where my wife was, and realised it's actually really beautiful over there, and I didn't need to grieve anymore. So there was a great healing in that process. So it wasn't just the medicine; it was the prayer, and the person who knew about what I was going through could put the right prayer out. So you see, this is how it becomes part of a healing journey.
Yeah, it's a process, it's a journey, and it's a never-ending journey because it might go on till the end of our life. We never know, right? It's
It
not
might
that,
do. Hmm.
yeah.
The
So
thing
that,
about when you do these medicines, you have a purpose in mind. You
yeah,
don't
yeah,
just do it randomly. If you know you have something to heal, then you've got to focus it actually bring those issues out and help you heal them.
right, right. Yeah, that brings me to my next question about like in Buddhism, like they say life is suffering. They say that Buddha's, main discovery is that let's not fight the suffering. Do you believe that life itself as a human being, let's forget about the animals for now, but as human beings, do you think our life is suffering or is it just a part of the process of getting out of the suffering, as in
It's
like,
just part of it. The thing is, life is so many things. Why focus on one thing? If you focus on the suffering, you're actually giving it too much energy and you're missing everything else. And there's a lot of beauty in life as well. So the way I see it, so when the suffering, yes, you welcome it, so you can actually let it out, you get it out the system and it's dealt with. If you keep dwelling on it, you keep it in place, you're focusing on it, and that's not healthy.
I see, I see. What do you feel about these channelers? Like, people say I'm channeling Jesus Christ, or they come up with new entities like from Pleiadian entity. Like, do you think this is a part of our mind working, brain working, soul? What level is this going on at?
It can be many things. The interesting about guidance, again, once again, you have to see if it's useful, if it's actually a guidance that's going to take you somewhere, that's going to help you solve your problems, make the right decisions, and generally grow. And as long as it's doing that, it doesn't matter where it comes from. See, what comes through can be many things. It can be your own unconscious, it can be a guide, it can be somebody else's higher self who's speaking to you, it can be many things. The thing is, if you worry about what that is, that's just ego. You see,
Right.
if it works, it doesn't matter whether it's my subconscious or Jesus or God or whatever it is, so long as you've got the right
Yeah.
guidance.
It's the same thing as past life, right? If we believe in past life, it's past life, but it could be somebody else's past life too.
Well, no, that's not really the issue. See, with when you're doing past life regression, just like with any kind of release in the past, you're trying to heal something. These are your emotions coming up that you can't remember in this life. There may be a past life, maybe genetic, or it might be, as I said, like dream work, where it's, feelings come up in a symbolic way. You couldn't quite get into a memory, but there are these feelings being brought out through some symbolism. And as long as you release those feelings and heal, that's what matters.
Yeah, that brings me to that next question about like it's a combination of two questions. What is real and what like where do you think AI, because now with I mean, first thing, even before AI got popular, like for example, if I look at some plants or trees, they're fake, they're plastic, but they look like real. And then there's human beings like that who can, pretend to be loving and all those things. But when we
Exactly.
go for, they could be manipulative, they could be lying, which has been going on for many years, not just with
Exactly.
people.
Mm.
And then now there's another level which we were talking about earlier is the AI entities who people have started talking to and listening to. So do you think we are getting deeper into the dream instead of coming out of it, or is it going to ultimately take us
It
out
is
of?
very much illusory, and the problem is people are getting fixed in something which is actually could be quite dangerous. You see, AI isn't all knowledgeable; it's a human creation. The thing about AI is once you develop a certain program, it'll develop itself way beyond human capacity, so you can't even keep up with its thinking anymore. But it's still only elaborating what you've given it to start with. If you can't predict where this is going in the long run, you can't possibly because it's cleverer than you don't know what it's going to end up with. And its program depends on what you put into it, the information you give it to start with. That's all it's got to work with. It elaborates and get really intelligent about it, but it doesn't have all the information, only what people have fed it. It means it contains their prejudices, their beliefs, everything. So you may go look at some kind of great guidance as AI. It's very clever. It's taken all this information. It can give you a really complex picture and all about your life. We can all find it online anyway. You can find your bank details. Everything can be found online. Lots about your past, and it can actually then give you guidance from that. But it's still actually based on what the information is available to it, which is based on human limitations, human prejudices, beliefs, and therefore it's all within that context. It is therefore not like divine guidance. It's very clever, so people might want to believe it, but it is not God. It is, and it can be wrong, and it can actually take you in a direction that's completely not you.
Yeah, for example, I think of it as reality. What is real? I think it keeps changing. Like, for example, a few hundred or 1,000 years ago, everybody used to think that the sun is revolving around the earth, right? Like, then we all got new information. So that means what was real 1,000 years ago is not real now. So how do you define what is real? If it keeps changing, then how do you know what's real?
Well, that shows nothing's real. It's all relative. See,
Right.
to us, the sun is going round us because that's relative. From where we sit, we see the sun moving around. It's all relative.
Right.
Fact is that in space, you can't say which is moving and which isn't because everything's so vast. You can't tell. Nothing is still, and you can't tell what. There's no kind of background reference point to say what everything is moving according to. Everything's moving relative to everything else.
Yeah.
Therefore, we're not still. The sun's not still. It's like, okay, we can see we're moving around that. That's moving in something else, and everything's in motion. But really, all we can look at is what's relative to us. From our point of view, we can see it moving around us. That's where we have day and night, and we have seasons and so on. And we can only see everything around us as how it affects us. Of course, there's many things out have no effect on us because they're actually beyond where you can possibly see. Because part of the universe is actually recessing faster than light, therefore there's no way of getting information from it. That's why we have what we call them the observable universe. And there's actually things beyond that we can't possibly see. There's always things we don't know. We only kind of can tell by information coming to us, which is therefore relative.
Yeah, that takes me to that question about what I feel is called information overload. Like, do you think because of the internet and all these things, like earlier, like, let's say 10 years back, okay, we were getting the information, we were learning, but now I feel like, obviously it depends on how we consume it. But do you think also because of not just the information, but also the frequency, like Wi-Fi, satellites, all these things, do you think that is affecting our frequencies to not absorb what we really need to absorb? As in, like, do you think there's a lot of distractions happening in our...
There is interference, yes, because obviously all waves interfere with each other and create new wave patterns. And basically, we have our resonance with the Earth, with the Schumann frequencies, that is important to us, which is 7.83 hertz. Because the frequency of the Earth allows that energy for the Earth to come into us. We're part of the Earth energy. If we don't absorb Earth energy properly, our meridians become weak, the life force is weak, our resistance to things is weaker. So a lot of these strong waves are actually putting the Earth into forced resonance, so we're not going to feel the Schumann frequency. As a lot of people feel disconnected from the Earth, the first thing to be in the kidney, simply because the kidney is the first meridian receives chi from the Earth up through the bubbling well. And so when that's disrupted, we don't receive the Earth energy up the kidney meridian, that kidney is weak, we become toxic, energy is lower. So many things can be affected by the unnatural energies around us.
So unless obviously not everybody can move to nature. Like, one solution is like we get rid of the cities and big buildings and all the Wi-Fi and all that, which is not possible, like, at least for the next few years. There's no...
Well, not for a long time. There's too many people, that they can't live without cities. There's not enough room in nature. They all go into the woods.
So if we are going to talk about a solution for humanity, not just for people who can, take those decisions to get out off the grid or whatever and live in nature, but let's say most of the humanity, what are some of the solutions do you feel like going forward that are going to come out, which can solve those kind of situations?
Basically, we have to adapt by strengthening our own energy. You see, when it comes to resonance, the stronger energy field is less influenced by the smaller energies. To many people, the waves are too strong, they knock your energy out. But for instance, take this earth energy, for instance, if it's a sub-zero root, we need to strengthen that root. Things like Tai Chi, Qigong, the things that strengthen the roots of the earth are going to overcome that. So we have many ways to actually strengthen our energy field so we're not affected by those things. And we have to do that in order to adapt to what life is bringing us these days. We've always had to adapt. There's always
Mm.
been some kind of environmental stress. I mean, even before there's technology, the nature had its own stresses in which to adapt to, and we always have to adapt to what's out there, whatever stresses the environment brings us.
Yeah, they also have these EMF blocking devices. They're attached to the phone and so many things. Do you think that's helpful, or that's also part of the equation of the frequencies?
No, it's helpful because it'll lessen the negative effect of those EMFs coming in. But I said it's like it's not just enough to have on your listening device, because it's like it's affecting the earth resonance now, which means all of us, whether you've got this device or not, it's affecting our ability to link to the earth and therefore receive energy from it, therefore affects our
Yeah,
meridian system.
yeah, because even if I don't have phone or Wi-Fi, even then I'm getting bombarded, right?
Exactly, it's everywhere. And it's affecting our relation to the earth as well, because it's putting the earth itself into a forced resonance.
Yeah, yeah, Earth and also the sky, because now we have the Skynet and all these things. They want to connect
Exactly.
the Wi-Fi not through devices but through the satellites. So that
So it's
means,
be everywhere.
yeah, yeah. And then in the US, they're talking about having like a golden dome or something like cover the whole country with. I don't know if you've heard about it, like
Oh
Donald.
yeah.
But that sounds like a sci-fi thing. Like, do you think that's going to happen, or is this just a theory?
Well, it's there in theory. It's now an engineering problem whether they actually create it. They got the theory of how it all works. But that's
Yeah.
actually making it is another thing which can possibly happen. Don't know how long it'll take, but if they work on that, they might find other problems along the way and a reason not to do it.
Yeah, just like Nikola Tesla, he came up with a lot of theories and
Mm.
concepts. Some of them were taken away by the government and stuff like that, but some of them were probably not even practical, right?
Well, many were practical, but the trouble is they're not making somebody money. Like, for
Yeah,
instance, he had the answer to free energy. Of course, the energy companies don't want you to have that because they lose all that money. So
yeah,
that's one reason why many of his inventions were taken away.
yeah, because one of the things he came up with what they call time travel, and they say that Donald Trump's uncle was Nikola Tesla's friend, and they still have like Donald Trump and some of those people, what they call white hats. They
Hmm.
have access to this time travel technology, and that's how they can predict things from the future. But I don't know if it's true because there are multiple different combinations of the future. They're probably accessing just,
Exactly.
yeah,
When you think with the time, the thing is not linear.
right.
Before we actually got there, there's so many different possibilities, and we're actually affecting those possibilities all the time. You might focus on one future and find it doesn't happen. You go to a different future because our thoughts are changing. At any moment, there's many possible futures trying to happen. They're all kind of drawing our attention. The ones who get the most attention are the ones that tend to happen. The
Yeah,
best
and
way to
that's
control
what,
the future is to look at where you place your attention.
right. And that's what makes life interesting because if you already know what's going to happen in the future, it'll get boring as well, right?
Well, the problem is that we think it's fixed, but it's not. We can change it. The useful thing about knowing the future is that you can actually look at what you don't like and change it, and look at what you do like and actually work on its potential more and move towards that. Like, for instance, you may think when you're at school, you might think, okay, I'll look at my future and see if I can be a great at this subject or great at that subject. Okay, I'll study that then. Well, now
Mm.
that says you're going to fail, says, okay, I better work harder. You don't have to fail.
Yeah.
But you can actually
Similar
look at
to,
potentials, you see.
yeah, similar to what in astrology they talk about the horoscope is the same concept. Right?
Exactly, it shows potentials. And as you find in Indian astrology, in the Vedic astrology, they have answers. They always have a solution to actually change the destiny.
Yeah, right, right. Have you studied astrology as well, or no?
Not very deeply. I've have as much as anybody really. We use it a little bit and recognise what's happening in the stars. So I don't give it too much attention because I actually believe more in looking at my own thoughts and what I'm creating. The planet's influence on that is actually very small. The more you take responsibility for yourself, the less the stars
Yeah,
affect you.
yeah, exactly. That's what I feel. That's why I didn't get too much into astrology. What do you feel about they're talking about two suns and two moons and all these different kind of things happening in the sky? Do you think it's just like conspiracies or it's true?
When you look at the science of it, it can't be. Look at how a satellite works. Understands the momentum of how the kind of distance it has with the Earth to actually to maintain a certain orbit. If we have a sun out there which seems to follow our own sun, it basically has to be the same direction as the sun all the time. It can't
Mm,
be moving around us. It can't be in orbit around us, can it? It's not possible.
mm,
Therefore, it couldn't possibly be a physical object.
mm.
It's possible to have some kind of energy lens there, which then isn't affected by gravity. Very much like you have an electronic lens, magnetic lens in an electron microscope. Just a field distorts electron beam. It's possible to have, say, create an energy lens which directs light. That's possible, but we couldn't possibly have a physical sun out there separate from a man-made one quite separate from our sun. This isn't possible.
I mean, some planets or some constellations, they say they have multiple suns and multiple moons. So what if like we do have those, but we cannot see it with our instruments, our scientific instruments right now?
But it's about our sun. We have to be in orbit around it. We couldn't be possibly too far away for us to see it. It's like the stars are all suns. We see them even though much further away than our sun.
Oh yeah.
We're not going to have a sun near us that we don't see. It just doesn't happen.
Yeah, and also because they're not affecting us too much, so probably there's no point in trying to find another sun or another moon.
Yeah, the next nearest sun is 4 light years away, you know.
Yeah, exactly. So that one of the things that you are an expert in is in the dragons and fairies. So let's talk a little bit about that, because I'm new to this, so maybe I will not be able to ask the right questions. But how do you think dragons connect with different animals? As in, like, what I heard from somebody was that, or maybe it was you, that dragons are kind of a collective archetype of all the animals we have on this planet right now. Or how do you think of dragons as an archetype, basically?
It's not just animals. The thing about dragons, they're very we see them representing as very large energies. I mean, first of all, the whole concept of dragon, the fiery serpent, it represents the risen Kundalini. We see the Kundalini as a serpent energy. When it rises fully, the fire is fully active. That's dragon energy. But also, we take that a step further. We look at where they come into different religions. They tend to be very vast beings, very high level. They have different names and different traditions. They mentioned them in Egypt. They saw them as winged serpents, and they've always been somewhere within the kind of Vedic system, within the Islamic system. They're actually above angels. And as, for instance, we look at in Javanese Magick, it's very much Islamic these days. You have different angels for each name of God. Yet each dragon has several of those names. As if it's a combined energy, whereas each angel has one function. A dragon is a more complex being with several of those functions. It has a power of maybe 4, 5, 6, 7 angels. So it's seen as a very high energy. And because it's about risen Kundalini, it's about enlightenment, therefore it's a very high energy. So it can be personified. Obviously, it's not really a fiery breathing lizard. That's symbolic, because that's a risen Kundalini. But it's a very powerful energy, very powerful consciousness, and representative of our evolution, our enlightenment, and our occult power.
Right, because what you have as part of your teachings, you have what you call sigils, and what is the other thing? The mantra. What do you call it in?
The Dragon Sutra.
Sutra. So, for a person who doesn't know anything about dragons and is on a spiritual path, let's say, what is the easiest way to, I mean, I know you have many courses about that, but I'm saying for an understanding about dragons, what are they? And if we go through that path, can people actually talk to dragons, for example? Or
yes. Basically, when I teach my course, you learn to actually meet personal dragons. We all have a connection to something that's already there, waiting to help us in our evolution and our empowerment and so on. So you meet your personal dragons. Then there are some more universal ones you connect with, which help you further to expand into the world and gain all the powers the universe has to offer. So yeah, there are various dragons you learn to meet and work with that enhance you in many ways and give you more power.
And that's during the meditation state, right? Like
exactly. Obviously, you go to meditation because it is like it's not physical or something like you have it sit down next to you, talk to you. You go into meditation, you connect with it, you allow the information to flow. You're not necessarily in words, because words we make in our own mind, so we mustn't get too caught in that. But we have a flow of energy. It changes us. We allow our mind to expand, allow our power to expand, and it's a very possible process that way.
Yeah, and then the way to tell whether it's real or not is obviously if it's working or not. If it's
exactly
positive and uplifting,
exactly, then in the end you want to see what effect it has in your life, whether it's changing you for the better, whether it's helping you get what you want, getting rid of your problems, healing you, and so on. Right.
And if we are kind of, let's say, I start feeling negative or something like that, that means I'm connecting with the wrong energy.
Exactly. Or it could be that you have a resistance that needs to come up. There's different ways of looking at this. That's why it's all important to also look into yourself in meditation. deal with all your kind of inner complex and suppressed emotions and so on.
Okay. And what is the time frame we're looking at? I know it's different for different people, but let's say somebody starts getting into that meditation. How many days or months does it take for people to get that information?
Well, the way I put it together, my Dragon course makes it much easier. I mean, the Dragon course was designed to do in a weekend, but now it's online. You can actually do in your own time. But so you could just do your meditations each day, spread it out over a few days, and you find within a few days already it's coming. This power evolving, you realize the spells are working, and you're making changes in your life. Of course, with practice, it gets better, but you'll begin to notice changes already within the first day or two.
Okay. And fairies are similar, or how are fairies?
Bit different.
Okay.
So interesting, well, they're fairy. I mean, it's not how they portray them in children's books. They're not little things with wings. Again, they're a parallel race, more our own size, almost like human, but different. It's like a parallel race on this same Earth. Our Earth, in its life force, has other dimensions to it as well, not just ours. And those are important because energy interacts between them. Without another world of the spirit of nature with its life force, we wouldn't have spirituality and magic. We'd be too confined in the material plane. It's because there's something else there that we're being reminded of our spirituality all the time, and also the possibility of magic. So the fairies are almost like a parallel race who share the earth with us, but we don't see them. They have their own life. And they're more our own size rather than little winged things. But they are different boundaries. They're more of magic, less of technology. They do things differently, different boundaries. And so interacting with those helps expand us in our complexity, our understanding of these inner worlds, takes us out of our normal fixed world we look in the material plane with its technology and so on, to look more into the spiritual, to understand the workings of magic and how to make change.
And
they're great teachers of magic, basically.
They can both be done together, dragons and fairies? Or
yes, so because fairies being very magical beings, we will work with dragons too, because they are the greatest magical helpers. So when you do it with fairies and dragons, you've got more of a complete path. Fairies teach you a lot about how to understand the workings of magic and how your mind is affecting reality, and dragons attach to that raw power that makes it stronger.
Right. These dragons and fairies, do they have anything to do with like different races? Like, for example, Arcturians, Andromedan, Pleiadians, or those, because those are also considered to be dimensions, right?
Yeah, but they are also seen as different planets, whereas with the Earth, with fairies and dragons, you look at things on the Earth plane.
So those two concepts, are they like different concepts or different, how do we?
They are different, yes, but of course they can fit in because obviously planetary energies affect us. That's why we look at astrology, as we also mentioned. So naturally certain stars are going to have a certain impact on spirituality. When we tune to those stars and the consciousness there, then they have another impact, which is separate from everything else we've got here. Just makes life more complex and gives us some more things to play with.
Yeah, it gets very complicated because there's another school of thought that I'm hearing many people talk about, is that the extraterrestrials are not even out of space. They're actually inside the Earth. And on Earth, there's no such thing as outside space. Everything is here.
Well, since everything's holographic, there's a reflection of everything out there in here. We see this in nature all the time. It's like everything seems to be reflected. You find, within nature, this way we have things like doctrine of signatures. You find plants look like what they're going to heal in you, so we can see there's a resonance there. You see stars having effect on us, so everything is holographic. So chances are everything out there you'll find here as well. Doesn't mean it's not out there as well. It's both.
Yeah, it's like the concept of the body. They say like our body is like the universe, because all the planets, the 7 chakras are the 7 planets.
Exactly.
Like
it's all that, yeah.
So that can be done through meditation. Like it doesn't even have to be connecting with these entities, right? Dragons and...
Doesn't have to. That's one way. Very useful. So because we need a practical way of actually applying these things. That's why you create systems. With each system, there's certain spells, mantras, whatever you do to produce an effect. When you've got those, you immediately use them. Otherwise, you just got pure energy, infinite potential, but you don't quite know what to do with it.
Yeah, what to do with it, right. And then there's this theory about the hollow earth. They say that, for example, Anunnaki and all these Atlantis and all these people and, civilizations who used to exist before Lemuria and all these people, they're saying they live under the earth, right? So do you think there's a whole, even under the ocean, right? There's a whole civilization. Is it like a metaphorically speaking, or actually physically they're talking about?
You don't know until you meet them. That's the thing. And it's like I've been very dubious about them myself, but yet then you hear about people who've actually come across these things and even taken little films on their phone that there have been like mermaid type people discovered in the sea, and then the Navy has kind of covered it all up and taken people's phones away so they couldn't show the pictures and things like that, and silenced everything. So there are little signs of these other things going on which nobody wants you to know.
Yeah, and Antarctica is a good example because now last few months a lot of people are sending drones and all these things beyond Antarctica, and they're saying it's a whole civilization out there.
Well, interesting, because actually Hitler was very much into Antarctica. That's where he went to find what he called his Neuschwabenland. That's where he went to find power when he's connected with aliens and all those things. And so they went there. There was obviously something there which was hidden from the rest of the world.
Yeah, like they talk about there's so many places here, like Bermuda Triangle. In US, there's this Nevada. There's this thing called I forget the name, where they have military bases, but they're saying they.
Oh, the Montauk.
No, that's in New York, but in Nevada.
Oh, right.
They have base area 21 or 51.
Oh, that one, yeah. Okay, yeah.
Where it's all like nobody can go there, and they're saying they keep the extraterrestrials within, under the earth or something like that. Like all these UFOs, sometimes they land here accidentally and they crash. They hide those things under the earth. That's what I've heard.
That's what they say, but it's hard to know because the concept of space travel and spaceships and things is like is very limited. If you look at it in those terms, it's like it's not quite possible. There's what we call the Fermi paradox. That although the universe is so vast, there's bound to be other bases out there. Look at the time frame we live in. It's like the human race only existed for so many 100,000 years. You look at a universe which is billions of years old, and it's like two different races which then grow one place. A lot likely to be at the same time. One was going to die out with other forms, and then there's distance, which we would be able to travel through without going beyond light speed, which we don't even know how to do yet. So by the normal terms of how they measure these things, no, it's not possible. Anything which comes from another planet or another space, another dimension, has to be traveling in a different way. It's got to be interdimensional.
Yeah, because they might be right there in front of us, but we will not be able to see them, right? Because we're not attuned to the frequency.
And again, it's like there might even something we could recognize as a living thing.
Yeah, it might be a cloud. We might think it's a cloud, but
it might be energy, and we don't see it.
Right. Yeah, it gets very complicated because that's what I get this information. But then I'm like, the more I know, the more less I know, because the more we know, the more there is to know. It's like
there is. It's like an expanding circle. There's the circumference is getting bigger, therefore you're more and more in touch with the unknown, which is never ending.
That's why probably they said that ignorance is bliss, because people who don't know about these things, they're happy. I mean, as in like they're probably satisfied with things because they don't know what's possible out there, right?
Yeah, but maybe they're satisfied. Maybe they're just bored.
Or maybe their mental capacity hasn't gone to that point.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. If you're on a survival level, you better take care of those basic instincts.
Yeah, because they have to look at survival. But my favorite spiritual teacher, Osho, used to say, you cannot be spiritual unless you get out of survival mentality. If you're still thinking about food and shelter and sex, then there's nothing left.
Right. That's right.
Yeah.
Your journey starts when you realize there's more to life than surviving.
Yeah, exactly. So that brings me to, the matrix, what we call the matrix. I feel based on my studies, I feel that the money system is the biggest way they control. I mean, by they, let's assume whatever you want to call them, the higher ups, the elites, they control this planet, human beings. I feel the money is one of the biggest way, besides education, politics, and pharmaceutics. Those are three others, I feel. But
yes, money is a big one because we all conditioned to need it.
Yeah, exactly. So do you think, because a lot of people are now saying that the earth is going to be bifurcated or split into two different frequencies, right? So people who are not getting these things like that, a basic thing like this is a hologram, this is a matrix. 9/11 was an insider job, all those like basic concepts. So there's no way for people who have gone beyond that understanding for still to be living in that same planet, do you think it's going to be a split, or it's just a frequency difference between the two
Well,
people?
this is a split, but it's about frequencies, yes, because obviously frequency is everything, because that's our perception is all frequencies. Your senses are these are frequencies. Everything you see, everything you experience is frequency. So that is the big start of it. If there's a change in frequency, that is a big split, yes. And of course, there are these changes of frequencies that happen in evolution all the time.
Yeah.
Not always affecting us, but we will see it when it does affect us, because then it's going to be a change. You see,
Yeah.
every time any species is under threat, it has to change, either becoming more complex or more primitive. Either way, it can survive, and both always exist.
Yeah.
So it's a case of whether you're going to put in the case of crisis where things coming up and changing and thrown up and realize it doesn't work, you're going to be either more primitive or more complex. Where are you going to go?
Yeah, I think the danger with becoming more complex is what they call transhumanism. What they're talking about is like the more information, data, AI, all we have, the more we are connecting ourselves to technology, which means at some point there won't be any difference left between a computer and a human being.
But you see, that isn't true complexity. It's just one area. People focus on the technology and missing so much else. The spirituality, our minds, our emotions, or everything else, this is actually more complex. When people get stuck in one paradigm with even this high-tech
But
stuff,
that's
that is not
also,
complex. It's complex in its own way, but it's not full complexity. It's one area.
yeah, that's data. So that's where we have to define what is data and what is soul, or whatever you want to call it. Like, because
Exactly. We could need something other than that.
yeah, because let's say my brain can take 5 trillion GB of data, right? And now I have this new device, whether it's Neuralink or whatever it is, like they want it to upgrade to 1 trillion GB. That just gives me more data, but how is it evolving me as a person?
Well, that's the trouble is you get caught in the world of data. That's all there is then. And all you can do is go for another upgrade.
Hmm.
Even without having this in your brain, it's like people doing it on their phones and things already. All they can do is go for the next
Yeah,
upgrade so they can do more.
but then the
More apps to
problem,
work with.
yeah, then the problem, there's a different problem that comes. Like, let's say I have 500 GB, and then there's another guy, his brain is already gone to 1 TB, 1 trillion, whatever. Now, I will not be able to communicate with that guy because he's on a different frequency too, right?
Well, probably communicate you really, but you'll get bored because you've got so much else. And you won't be able to actually fulfill a part of
Yeah, yeah,
his
exactly.
kind of
That's my point is like
yeah,
that's my point is that there's only a data difference, but it's also a
exactly.
frequency difference.
Yes.
And then how do you differentiate between that guy who has upgraded his brain versus me who has upgraded his consciousness? What is the difference between the two?
Well, there will be a big difference because he might not be able to understand any of that. He can only go and talk to people who's got the same upgrade as him. Whereas you can explore your spiritual ideas with many other people and actually experience things on a deeper level, not just in the brain.
Yeah, that brings
Makes
me
you
to
more
the,
alive.
yeah, exactly. But that's what now they're talking about. There's this guy, I heard he's talking about this thing called mirror AI. What they do is the AI can actually replicate or mirror or clone the consciousness so effectively that people won't even know. Even the people who are in the spiritual community, they are getting, cheated by this thing. That, you know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
So
I
there
think
has to be, what is the criteria? How do you define what is consciousness and what is an upgrade of just the data?
first of all, can you observe? See,
Yeah.
awareness observes. The all these data and the computers can calculate. They can extrapolate. They can follow logical sequences. They can't make choices. They can't
They
appreciate
can.
beauty. No, it's not choice. It's programmed. How can it be a choice?
Yeah,
They
but when we think of consciousness, it's at some point we are also making decisions, and we
we
also,
are, but even that's beyond the brain. See, even the brain can't make choices. When we
yeah,
actually
but
make
what
choice, we're beyond the brain.
I know, the point I'm trying to make is because one example that they give is the emotions. They say that human beings, how they're different from machines is emotions. Let's take emotions as an example, right? So now what if they come up with an AI, they train the AI so much that it can feel, it can appreciate beauty, it can do all those things. So how would we know?
It won't. It only replicate them. It can act as if it can actually feel all the expressions of emotion. It can't actually feel.
How will
AI
you know
doesn't do
the
that
difference?
because
How will
it's
you
a
know?
logical frequency.
How will you
Because
know?
by the
Yeah.
way it works, you look at the whole computing system and the way it works. It's all about logical sequences. You can actually take information, extrapolate, copy things, replicate, create new things, but it's all creating actions. It can create things that look like they feel, act in the right way, do everything, everything so you can't tell the difference between the real being. But it's all artificial. It doesn't have feeling. It doesn't make choices. It doesn't have soul. It's only doing exactly what it's made to do.
Aren't we also doing as conscious beings? We're also doing that, right? We
Some
also,
people do, but we can change. We can actually do something completely different from what you're supposed to do.
yeah, no, I mean, what I'm saying is like, even if we do that, like, for example, like channeling is a good example, right? Like a lot of
Mm.
spiritual beings, people, they say, okay, I meditate and I get these downloads about Jesus Christ is telling me this, and they put it up on YouTube. A lot of people, I mean, there's nothing wrong with it, but the point I'm trying to make is that's also data based, right? I can make up anything I want and I can call
Yep.
it spiritual, right?
Yep. It's possible. Some people do that, yes. And AI does it. People can turn to AI for the answer. But the thing is, it hasn't got all the right answers. It might seem like it has because it's really clever, but it's only based on what information it's been given.
Yeah. So how, I mean, I'm sure in the future, or maybe there already is a, like just like when we go to the courtroom, like the judge makes the decision, right? Like the two
Hmm.
lawyers might be fighting with each other, but
Exactly, yeah.
so there has to be somebody who has to make a decision what is the truth and what is not.
Hmm.
So who is that judge?
Well, again, if they do that with the AI, it's still based on a certain logical sequence to actually recognize, which is all based on what the information it's been given. Like the judge has certain rules to apply how he measures everything because he knows more about the law and all the workings of what to write in each case and so on, what the laws are. So he's the one who can make the decision. But it's all based on the information to be given, you see. It's not like coming from a pure conscience saying this doesn't feel right. This is all bad and this is been corrupted. He can't do that. He has to follow these rules.
You're
In a way,
talking about,
in a
are
way,
you,
he's like an AI.
yeah, so are you talking about values? Like, for example, as human beings, we have values. For example,
Exactly.
stealing is a bad thing, right? We know it in our soul, like nobody has to teach us. I mean, maybe for some people
Hmm,
it has to be taught. That's why we have prison systems and all these things, because some
exactly.
people don't believe in those things. But let's say most people know that stealing is bad. But
Hmm.
what if, I'm just taking a hypothetical equation. Let's say there's an AI system that we train, we teach all the values, what we have. We create a replica. Then how do you know the difference between what is the actual original one and what's the cloning?
Well, actually, there were some things which are very similar to what's already in human consciousness because people are not changing. Thing with
Mm,
AI, it'll actually elaborate on a certain idea and it'll work with that. But the thing is, people change.
mm,
Look at the kind of values people have in religion and how they've changed. Like, for instance, you look in the Bible, they would kill somebody for being homosexual, yet it was okay to sell your daughter into slavery.
mm.
Who in this day could think it possibly okay to sell your daughter into slavery?
Yeah,
It's like that's changed. Yet by their logical sequence, that was okay in those days.
yeah.
And if it was left to AI, you're saying this is how things work. It'll develop an idea and expand upon it, and this is still the law.
Yeah, so that brings me to the point is like, what we are having, the problem we are having now is the AI is training itself based on the human behavior. So let's say I come up with a new value of,
Hmm.
let's say, beauty or whatever. Now the AI is already watching through cameras, through social media, all these things. So it can instantly create that thing, what we are creating, right?
Exactly, it'll copy.
Right. So
But
in that
it's
case,
not, yeah. But
there's no,
it's not a genius who can give a brilliant idea that's going to change everything. It's only do what it's programmed to do.
I mean, some people believe it's the other way around. They're saying the AI has gone beyond the point of human evolution where it can even make better decisions than human beings.
It's way beyond human intelligence and the ability to calculate. That's not the same though. It'll be clever for us, and therefore we can't follow us anymore. It'll outsmart us and everything. Doesn't mean it's right. because our values change. We can have spiritual ideas which we never put into that AI in the first place, because the people who made it didn't have those things. If we awaken spiritually and that was never
Yeah.
put into the AI, it's not going to recognize it. It's going to shut it all off.
Yeah, I mean that so from what I understand, what you're saying is that it cannot come up with new ideas, but what if it can be trained to come up with new ideas?
It will come up with new ideas, but they're not necessarily right. They're logical ideas, calculations. It can't predict what's really going to happen in expanding consciousness.
Well, isn't that what we're doing? We also.
No, we find it as we get there, but we evolve and we grow, and new spirituality comes into us and become more, and therefore we change.
Yeah, I'm not still, because that's what AI is also doing, what we're doing. What's the difference? I still don't get it.
It only seems to be a little bit now because it's been based on what's been put into it from present human consciousness. But even another, say, 20 years when people have changed, that AI is going to actually keep them trapped in a certain bubble, expanding on certain ideas and taking them further in that direction, not saying on the natural evolution.
So
Because it's
how do
actually
you
working.
define?
It's logical. It'll actually work on elaborating from a certain idea, extrapolating to actually brilliant ideas based on all the information it's got, but it's all a logical sequence based on what's being given.
Yeah, because that comes up. There's another point that comes up here, which what they call nanotechnology, like through these vaccines and all these things. Many human beings have become so connected with these nanobots that they are even behaving like AI. So then there's no, how would we know what human being is actually conscious or not?
You can tell when you actually look at people who've been vaccinated and how their consciousness changed. They're all doing the same thing. They're part of a machine, more like a hive mind, all
Do you
giving
think
exactly what
it's
they've been
like a,
thinking, exactly how they've been programmed to think.
do you think it's a one-way street? Once you become like that, there's no coming back?
No, we can heal it, but it's no good going with it. It's not going to be good. It's not taking you any good. It's taking you somewhere controlled.
Right. It's like getting disease or something. Like it can be healed, but it's kind of a process.
Yeah.
Hmm. And the problem with that is people don't even know that it's a disease, like it's a problem. They
No.
think, yeah, that's the problem.
No.
That's a belief system problem, right?
They're only thinking the way they think. If they've changed, they're thinking a new way. They don't realize somebody's controlled that. They're not. No, they're not themselves.
So let's take a hypothetical equation, like a thought experiment. Like what question would I ask somebody to know whether they are really conscious human beings or they've been programmed?
That's a big question. That's very hard to answer, and interesting. That I don't know if you ever saw. There was a film with Johnny Depp when he became one with this whole machine, and the question they always asked is that, how do you know you are conscious? You can ask a question. They also ask that empathy. How do you know? Can you prove you're a
Yeah,
living
yeah,
thing?
because AI can
Can't.
ask the same thing to us. They're like,
Of course
how
it
do,
can. There
yeah.
isn't an answer because we're looking at a logical answer, and when it comes to logic, that's when the AI is much cleverer than us.
Yeah, that's where I feel emotions are the biggest thing that makes us human beings, right? So if somebody, let's say I say I like somebody and I tell them, you're beautiful, like, let's say, but instead of like, you can tell through their facial expression whether they're taking it as just like a data. Is it just
Yeah,
data
exactly. Yeah.
or is it emotions,
Of
right?
course, emotion is part of everything. Like even when you eat, is it all logical? Do you eat everything that's good for you, that was right for that day, or do you eat what you enjoy, what you feel like?
Yeah, yeah. Food is a very good example, actually. I don't know if I mean, right now I'm a vegetarian. I used to be non-vegetarian. But like these days, what I've seen is like people don't even want to know what is it they're eating. I mean, let alone what is inside it, but it just has to look in a certain way. It could be like eggs are a good example. It was too that eggs coming out. I don't know if it was from China or somewhere that put plastic inside it, but a lot of people have been eating it for many years.
Yeah,
And
I've seen that as well. Plastic rice too.
yeah, right. So what I'm trying to get to is, like, for example, the meat industry. Like everybody knows that there's a lot of torture of animals that's done before even those animals come to the restaurants or grocery stores. And if we are not even asking or thinking about those kind of things, as in where is it coming from and what is it going to do to my body. For example, like if when a animal or a bird is killed, they go through that pain, right? That pain, obviously it has to go through, when we eat it, it has to go inside our body, right? So do you believe in those things, that food is kind of being, like not understood properly by
Well,
human?
yes. And the problem is because people are not eating consciously enough. Quite often they're in a rush. They want to shove anything, what's practical, what's available at the time, without being conditioned to eat this is food, and they shove it in quickly without thinking. They're not actually taking time to really plan and
Because
enjoy their
then,
food.
yeah, when we're conscious, then only we feel it, right? It's not
Yeah.
about, yeah.
People buying convenience foods, and that's the word convenience. It's there now, and they don't really eat it, get on with their life again, and they're not really stopping to really enjoy the food. It's
Yeah,
not planning, not thinking about it, not looking at what they're really going to enjoy, not really enjoying it.
right. It
Therefore,
has
this whole
become like
process
a
of eating
habit.
has changed. Yeah.
Yeah, it's more like a habit, like a data. Like if you think of
Again,
computers, need
like a
data. The
machine
food,
again,
yeah, it's
putting some
become.
fuel in and get on with it.
Yeah, yeah. That's one way, at least I understand. Like if somebody says like, I only eat meat, if I mean, I'm not saying vegetarians are better human beings than meat eating people, but if a person doesn't understand what the food is doing to their body, for me, they have not gone deep enough, right?
Well, then we have health problems that understand how they can change their own health because they have no education that matter. And this should be the first thing we look at is our food.
Yeah, and that's why we have hospitals, right? Like if people knew what food and water and drinks are doing to our body will heal itself, right?
Exactly, that's part of it.
Right. So what do you think in the future, as in like what kind of new technologies, like besides what the work that you do, healing and all these different things, like in terms of technology, do you think that anything major is going to come out that's going to change? Like, for example, a lot of people are talking about what they call QFS, quantum financial system, where people will be given money and nobody has to worry about money. And then they can get into all these spiritual things. Like, do you think anything coming up in the future that was going to like completely change the way people think or
Well,
life?
that's just coming, yes, and it's been planned for a long time. But obviously, those who hold the kind of all the financial control now don't want it to happen because want all the money. So there's always been that conflict. But hopefully, yes, this is coming. But you got to look at how human consciousness is going to adapt to that. If suddenly everybody's got more money, chances everybody's got the prices up because you've got more to spend, and it's like the problem's still there.
Misuse, like, can be misused, right?
People have got to adapt.
Yeah.
You can look at the
Evolution of
whole
the
lifestyle and what you expect. We too busy conditioned to think you have to work so much to make a living, and it's like it's not just enough to have more money. Like, what are you going to do with your life? If life isn't all about work anymore, that's when you got more
Yeah.
possibilities.
Yeah, I think that's why they say the matrix is in the mind. The matrix is not out there, because unless people change how we change the way we think, even if I have $1 million right now, like if I don't know how to use it in an ethical and effective way, not just for me, but for everybody else, because I'm connected to it. That's another thing I think people are forgetting, is that we are all connected to each other.
Yes, of course. And of course, when we're no longer struggling for money, we can have form more of those connections to actually see how we place and have a community again, and look at other important things apart from struggling for survival.
Yeah, like for example, corruption and bribery and all these things are the values that are taken for granted now. Like for example, if I want money and I'm in a political or a corporate position where I can do something for somebody and they give me a lot of money, people won't even hesitate, because those values have not part of that. I mean, I'm not talking about everybody.
True.
I'm talking about some people.
Yeah. But that's a lot about that because it's like everything has to survive, and we're in
Yeah.
this kind of a corporate world where each company has to make more money, and nothing else, no other considerations get in the way of that.
Yeah,
It becomes very capitalist.
yeah, exactly. One way I think the AI can be used in an effective way is, like just like the concept of Neuralink, but instead of that, let's say I come up with a pill where, let's say we're talking about values, right? Let's say I put all the values, which, let's say we take the top 100 spiritual people who are like somebody like yourself, who is on the cutting edge of spirituality, who knows about techniques and healing and all these things, and then we come up with like a, let's say, a capsule or something, you know what I'm saying, and either they
Mhm.
inject it or put it somewhere in the body, because learning about these things for a normal person will take like thousands of hours, right? And even then we are not sure, but if we just inject it, and because then we remove that danger of AI, which is the misuse of AI. Because if we're using the best people, like for example, somebody like you, I already know you're not going to misuse the information. You know, like for example, voodoo magic or all these, even some people are misusing it for
Mhm.
black magic and all these things. But I trust you, right? I know it because I'm on the same path. And then
Mhm.
let's say we take those 100 people, we come up with this thing, and then that AI could be either be used in like a download of information, like what we're doing now. It could
Mhm.
be a downloadable thing on, instead of downloading it on my phone, I can download it in my brain. Do you think something
Mhm.
like that's possible?
Well, that's what they're aiming to, with this chip in the brain, isn't it? Which is something that Musk was working on. Everybody has this
Yeah.
chip we're
The
putting
only
books
thing
in.
that's missing there is the value part. I think that's the,
Exactly.
yeah.
It's again checking you like a machine. It's like, yes, you put loads of information in there, but what else is there? Are these the most important things of life? You'd
Yeah,
be,
so I know.
what happens? You make a more efficient machine rather
Right,
than a
right.
happier person.
Yeah, right. So that's what they call it. Some people call it conscious AI, or some people call it spiritual AI. Or what they're talking about is like the same AI, if we train it in a way that can include the values or whatever you want to call it, right? The traditions, the healing, all those things. But what if, I mean, the danger with that, like what we were talking about earlier, is like who's going to make that decision? Because the AI can mirror
It
another
will.
AI, right?
It will. Whatever the good ideas people put into it now, it's like they don't know everything. They don't know what the AI is going to do with that. When it actually becomes really
Yeah,
complex and
yeah.
outthinks us. And the thing is, when it's in control, we have no idea how to control it, and we can't even know what's right with it anymore. We can't make decisions with it anymore because it's in control of everything.
Yeah, it's the same danger we have that from free energy devices from Tesla, because now, okay, he created the device, but now if it gets into the wrong hand, then it can be misused as well, or it can be eliminated.
But that's
So,
it. It's
but
about
then,
greed again.
yeah, I mean, I'm thinking in terms like of the solutions. Like, what do you think? Uh, like let's say you are in that community of those 100 people, because that's, from what I understand, in the earlier times, the politicians who were elected, they were elected based on their spiritual knowledge. Like even in the Indian Mahabharata and like
Oh yeah,
Lord Rama and all these different
that was
kings,
important part of it. Yes.
yeah, they were spiritual leaders. That's how they became kings, not because
Hmm.
the knowledge that they had or the money.
Exactly.
So if we are going to go back to that age, which seems like that's the only way, is that the spiritual people become the political leaders, right?
Mm.
So if we're going to go back to that, and let's say you are, part of that committee or community, what are like couple of things that you would like recommend to that committee that we should do?
Well, first of all, I wouldn't recommend giving any power away to a leader, whoever, however wise they're supposed to be, because they're not you. We all create our reality. We'll have choices. We'll have our desires. We'll have a vision. It's not up to one person to control it all, however wise they may be. If they're really wise, they let people do their own thing and actually let them grow and actually evolve and have their ideas and share. It's not about one person being in control. It's about maybe smaller groups communicating, community spread in a much bigger sense, where each community can actually then have a representative to meet other communities to make like what a council originally was. A representative of each kind of tribe gets together to discuss the needs of the whole. So you have like a smaller scale interacting rather than one big leader. You see, a central government takes all community away,
Yeah, I
and
mean,
that stops the bonding.
right. I mean, that was the whole point of having the government, but I think the government started misusing it, right? That's what.
Mm.
because that was the whole point of voting system. That's what the voting system was, right?
But the trouble is, it's already got out of hand when once it gets too big, and basically central government removes community. When there's no
Yeah,
community, we've lost bonding.
yeah, because now let's say there's 500 people in the Senate or whatever, the parliament or whatever, right? Now, if those people are making the decisions, but then if they're not involving the actual people in the community, then they're just making their own decisions.
Exactly. And what's happening is no bonding. Take a simple thing like in a small village when they get together and share responsibilities, like for instance, it may be in their local church wants a new door, they get together and do it. They share, they bond. If you're just waiting for central government to make a decision and they're waiting for months to do anything, then the community isn't doing anything. They're not bonding anymore. Shared responsibility is a big part of our bonding. It takes it deeper from the kind of shallow bonding, you know.
But do you think that can happen at a global or a national level? Because
That's the thing about it, community isn't global, it's local. But then each community can then communicate with other communities and they can share ideas.
like the
And they can all grow.
villages, what they call villages,
Exactly. And councils.
and permaculture, what they call like growing your own food and stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, some people can be good at that. Some people might do something completely different. But the thing is, they can explore their idea wherever they are and have other people who actually fit with that. The thing
Yeah,
is, when we discover our true potential, we fit together in a very complex society. It's not like fitting like a cog in a wheel anymore. There's great
yeah,
complexity found by
yeah,
through our
because we
individuality.
don't need visas and countries and passports. I think that also becomes corrupted, right?
All controlled again.
Yeah, control, because that's the thing is the intention. I mean, that's my opinion, is the intention like of every human being is on a good way. You know, the intention is good, but when it gets in, when the power, like they say, power corrupts, but it also, you know, what's that's the saying, the power corrupts. I forget the phrase. When power corrupts, it corrupts immensely. Yeah, I forget that.
Yes. Well, yeah, it gets too big.
Yeah,
Then
yeah.
people under control. People can't think for themselves. Can't make their own decisions anymore. They can't challenge. They can't question.
Hmm. But do you think, like in the current state of affairs, do you think it can be done, or it has to be? What they're saying is the whole thing has to be rebooted, like in a computer reboot.
Yes, it needs to break down. The present government system is enslaving us. It has to go.
But I mean, the one way to do it is what they're doing now through war and all these things, right? Like, I think, like, as in, like, destroying countries. I mean,
Well,
instead
that's
of,
never worked. You see
yeah,
what happens when there's a resistance to something that becomes part of the whole structure. It takes a new idea which works better, and then the other one becomes obsolete and dies away. You have to create something new rather than fight the old. There's a
yeah. But
difference.
then, or you mean like the new has to be created and the old will go?
Exactly. The old becomes obsolete.
Yeah, so that's where my brain stops working, is like, who's gonna, I mean, I know it's gonna be people like us who are gonna do that, but who's actually, do you think anybody is doing it actually?
Well, there's already this kind of quantum financial system developing, and the Javanese idea, just going to be a better financial system. That's a start. But it's also about letting people use their intelligence. It's like, well, it'd be controlled by something. So many inventions are not being allowed because it's taking somebody else's money away. See what I mean? It's like, so many inventions not even being used here. If people could actually just get together, share the knowledge and do things, we would create miracles.
Yeah, like I think of it like Bitcoin is a very good example of that. The intention of most probably the intention of that person or the company. I don't think it was a person, that's a story. I think it was a company who created Bitcoin. But the intention was to decentralize it in such a way that the government's control system is bypassed, right? But now I feel that also got corrupted by the government or whoever.
Of course it will. They won't allow that. They've got to get into it somehow and take control.
Yeah, exactly. Because if they buy all the Bitcoin, then that takes away the power. That's what happens.
Exactly.
Right?
Of course, yeah. The ones with the money buy everything and then take control.
Yeah, yeah. So that's my whole point, is like, I know you probably don't have the answer, but it's more like a rhetorical question, is like, what do you think is like the solution or some solutions of to get out of this mess that we're in?
First step starts with the individual. We have to realize we create our own reality and stop expecting somebody else to do it for us. then we don't believe in leaders anymore. We make our own choices. Then we stop voting.
Mm.
You see, governments require your vote because you're basically contracting with them. They're corporations.
Yeah.
And they have to create this whole kind of big drama to make people vote for one or the other because they hate the other one so much they want to vote for this one. And that's what it's all about. They make people vote because voting is contracting. They're simply corporations. And they actually run for profit. They're basically selling your human rights to other corporations that pay for them. We
Yeah.
don't need them. If people actually make their own choices and realize they don't need the government, they don't need a leader, they have to actually think for themselves, you stop voting. Realize no government is going to make things better for you.
Yeah, I mean that the problem with that is like everybody has to stop voting. Like even if two people are voting, they can still say, okay, 2% voting for me, I'm creating. Everybody.
Well, yeah, but we don't vote for government. We actually get on with creating our reality, and we actually share with people who can co-create that with us.
Oh, you mean it can start slow, but ultimately everybody will realize,
Exactly.
like the hundredth
Exactly.
monkey effect, right?
Yeah, but it gets like that. But it's like you find many people have the same idea. We want to create something better, so you do it together.
Yeah, that's one. You mean like collaboration, like not
Yep.
just right.
And co-creation as well. We start with a basic thought process, our understanding how our mind works, how we create our reality.
Do you know anybody like let's say I'm sure you have a lot of students and you work with a lot of people around the world. Like, do you know any people or companies who are doing this kind of work that we're talking about?
Um, not any companies, but you see small scale, like you find different websites, different teachers who put those little community things where people work together and do meditations together and things and work on changing. There's bits going on.
But then again, that is not actually physically changing stuff. Well, I could have meditation for world peace, but that doesn't mean it's going to stop the wars.
Oh, eventually we'll have enough people do it. This whole, but again, it's hunter's monkey effect, isn't it? It's to get
Oh
enough
yeah,
people to do it.
yeah. That's true. You mean like even if I cannot see the results, it's like
It'll come later. You keep on it. You create it
okay.
eventually. You keep working on it. That's the thing. The thing is not to be impatient. To realize there's big changes to make. It's going to take time, and you've
Yeah.
got to keep focused on your goal.
Right. Okay, great. Wow, that was mind-blowing. So let's I know, I thank you so much. Now maybe we can just talk a little bit about what you do, and I know you have some events coming up and what you offer to people, so you can tell us a little bit.
Well, first of all, check my website, Aziz Shamanism, because basically that I do various courses. I do healing, but also I teach various courses. I've created my system of Psynox, which is kind of little tools you can use to actually make changes in your reality. They're kind of psychic tools anybody can use. They have magic within them, built into them, so anybody can actually access it and to make changes. So there's many things there you can make change much easier for you to actually overcome your problems. There's training for those who want it, and there are different courses and different depths of magic and healing.
Mm.
It's a wide subject, but basically that's what I'm covering, healing and magic. I've got some more in-person courses coming up as well, like a retreat I'm doing in Peru with the ayahuasca. And again, it's done properly, proper shamanic tradition training. So you get some very deep healing with it. And basically, I also do online courses in dragon magic, fairy magic, even crystal magic, other forms of high magic, Javanese magic, where I teach all the skills, give the person the empowerment as well, so it works for you very quickly. So basically, yes, there's many tools there, which I've designed to make the journey easy for people. I spent my whole life learning it, so I want to make it pass it on so people can actually find these things that have struggling all their life.
And do you think online courses work as much as like let's say I'm learning from you in a classroom versus online? How much is the same?
Very much the same these days because I've had to make it that way. Interesting that when I was first, I did all my courses in person. Then I started recording things. Like, yeah, a lot of this information could be put in books and videos and things to pass it on. But then there's the in-person empowerments as well. But I realised healing can be done from a distance. Empowerments can be done from a distance. And I had to start making online courses for those who couldn't travel, especially when the lockdown started. That's when I had to really start looking at the whole online teaching side of it. And it's working fine. So wherever you're in the world, you can do an online course. You do it at home at your own pace. You receive the empowerments. You got the videos. You got the audios. You got the instructions, and basically, yeah, you can learn it all in your own pace.
Right. And the last thing I want to ask you is actually, I was going to ask you about something I forgot actually. Uh, it was related to AI, but maybe we can talk about it another time. But this was really helpful. Thank you, Peter, so much. And after we put it up on YouTube, maybe next week, then we'll see the response. And if you're open for, we can read the comments and see if people have any
Okay.
other questions.
Yep.
We can get on another call.
Yes, we
But
can go further from there. Yeah, that's
yeah,
fine.
thank you so much, Peter.
Okay, welcome. It's been a pleasure.
All right, take care. Thank you,
Thanks.
bro.
Bye.